Hello all, welcome to the Universal Group of Institution, Bangalore. For today's topic of discussion in polity subject will be your Simon Commission to Indian Independence Act. We will be knowing from 1927 to 1947 the developments. So in this session, we will dive into the crucial period from the Simon Commission in 1927 to the Indian Independence Act of 1947. This time frame witnessed the final push towards India's freedom, laying the groundwork for a republic. Let's explore the significant milestones and acts that shaped this era. So now we will study about Simon Commission. We all have heard about it, right? Know about it in details. So in 1927 it was done. The Simon Commission was constituted by the British government to review the working of the Government of India Act 1919. Here the Government of India Act 1919 becomes very important. The commission, however, was composed entirely of British members with no Indian representation, which triggered massive protests across the country. Indian leaders and political organizations unanimously opposed the commission. So what was the biggest flaw here? All the members of Simon Commissions were Britishers and not even one was an Indian citizen. So not even one Indian was taken at that time, all Britishers were taken. Key figures like Lala Lajpat Rai led protest during which he sustained fatal injuries due to police brutalities, later passing away. So another grief period happened, and what happened was Lala Lajpat Rai was very active at that time and he did a lot of protest, but he could not sustain the brutalities done by the Britishers and he passed away by the lathi charge. The widespread unrest symbolized the growing disconnect with British policies, and this was the turning point in the national movement. In response to the Simon Commission, Indian leaders sought constitutional reforms led by Indians, eventually resulting in the Nehru Report of 1928. So in 1928, we come to see about the Nehru Report. What it tells? So the Nehru Report, drafted by the committee led by Motilal Nehru, was the first attempt by the Indians to propose a constitution for India. It demanded dominion status for India within the British Commonwealth and outlined various provisions including the universal adult franchise, fundamental rights, and the establishment of parliamentary system of government. So when this Nehru Report came, they were talking more about dominion status. Here the dominion status becomes very important because they were asking for this status. They want to be under British rule only, under British Commonwealth rule only, but they wanted dominion status and they wanted other facilities like universal adult franchise, fundamental rights, and parliamentary system of government. The report rejected the concept of separate electorate for minorities, which led to tensions, especially with Muslim League's leaders like Muhammad Ali Jinnah. The 14 points of Jinnah, which was given in 1929, were a response to this disagreement. So, Nehru Report said that we are not going to have separate electorate for Muslims, okay? Because India is comprising of Hindu and Muslims, so we are not going to have separate electorate for Muslims. But what Jinnah did, he brought his own 14 points of Jinnah declaration in 1929 because he was not okay with what Nehru Report said. The British refusal to acknowledge the Nehru's report proposal fueled further demand for complete independence. Again, British said that we are not okay with the Nehru Report, and again the whole India was against Britishers and they wanted to unite and fight for the Indian independence. Further demand for complete independence leading to the Lahore session in 1929 where Purna Swaraj was said, it was like complete independence. Purna Swaraj means complete independence. They declared in Lahore session in 1929 they want complete independence. and declared that as the Indian National Congress goal. So this was declared as the goal of Indian National Congress. Now we will talk about civil disobedience movement and round table conference. So from 1930 to 1932 we have the civil disobedience movement and round table conference. The civil disobedience movement initiated by Mahatma Gandhi in 1930 with the Salt March to Dandi aimed to challenge British authority through non-violent means. The movement called for boycotting British goods, non-payment of taxes and defiance of colonial laws. So this civil disobedience movement, which started with Salt Satyagraha, Salt March, which is also known as Dandi March, it asked for like payment of taxes, non-payment of taxes and defiance of colonial laws. So these were the demands, and also boycotting of British goods. So they wanted to boycott the British goods completely. The British government responded by organizing the Round Table Conference. Round Table Conference happened from 1930 to 1932 in London, inviting the Indian leaders to discuss constitutional reforms. Gandhi attended the second Round Table Conference after the Gandhi-Irwin Pact of 1931. So the first Round Table Conference was not attended by Gandhi, but the second Round Table Conference was attended by Gandhi after Gandhi-Irwin Pact in 1931. This is also very important dateline, which temporarily suspended the movement. However, the failure of these talks to bring about sustainable concessions for Indian delusion, the Indian leadership. These events solidified the demand for complete independence as the British continued to resist transferring significant powers to Indians. So British were not ready to give complete independence to Indians, but India under the leadership of Gandhi wanted complete independence. So they wanted complete independence. Government of India Act 1935. Then government came with this Government of India Act 1935. The Government of India Act 1935 was the most comprehensive constitutional reform introduced by the British before independence. It marked a significant through limited steps towards granting autonomy to Indians. Though it was limited, but it was a significant step towards granting autonomy to Indian people, while retaining the substantial British control over central administration. So they will keep a hold on the central administration, but they will give some kind of decentralization of power in the provinces. Okay, the central authority will be still obtained by the Britishers. What were the key provisions of the Government of India Act 1935? Provincial autonomy. The autonomy will be given in the provincial level and not in the central level. Provincials were granted autonomy, allowing them to form ministries, but governor still has emergency powers. Again, the governor who is sitting with the center is having the emergency powers. Federal structure. The Act proposed the creation of a Federation of British Indian Provisions and Princely States. Through this provisions, the provision was never fully implemented. Although they wanted a federation of princely states and the provinces, but this never actually happened. Bicameral legislature. A bicameral legislature was introduced at the center, consisting of the Council of States and the Federal Assembly. Diarchy abolished in provinces. So in provinces, the diarchy was abolished. The diarchy system introduced by the 1919 Act was abolished in provinces, though it was retained at the center. So at center we had diarchy, but at the provinces we did not had any diarchy. Separate electorate. Continued separate electorate for various communities, deepening the communal divide. So this was deepening the communal divide. We all know once the separate electorate started, people had started having the religious feelings that Hindus are different, Muslims are different and other minorities are different. Federal Court. Established a Federal Court of India, which later became the Supreme Court after independence. While the Act introduced provincial autonomy, it was criticized for not offering real control over crucial subjects such as defense and foreign affairs. Nonetheless, it formed the basis for India's post-independence constitution, particularly in terms of federalism and the legislative structure. So the Government of India Act 1935, students, played a very important role in the formation of Constitution of India. Quit India movement in 1942. Launched in August 1942 by Mahatma Gandhi with the slogan "Do or Die." The Quit India movement was one of the largest mass movement aimed at ending British rule. Gandhi called for an immediate withdrawal of the British from India. The British government's response was swift and brutal, arresting almost all prominent leaders of the Indian National Congress, including Gandhi. So Gandhi was also arrested at this time. Despite several repressions, the movement saw widespread participation from various sections of society, including students, workers and farmers. So we have seen that a lot of workers, students and farmers have actually taken part in Quit India movement, that is Do and Die movement. Although the movement was crushed, it demonstrated the unshakable resolve of the Indian people for freedom and convinced the British that maintaining control over India was no longer feasible. So by this time, British was aware that India is not going to be that easy to be handled. So in 1942, it was very clear to Britishers that they have to leave someday or the other. Then Cabinet Mission Plan in 1946. In 1946, the British sent the Cabinet Mission to India to work out a constitutional framework that would lead to Indian independence while preserving unity. The Cabinet Mission Plan proposed a three-tier government structure. What was the three-tier government structure? The Union of India, the group of provinces and the individual provinces. It provided for the formation of Constituent Assembly to draft a constitution. So a constitution assembly was done. This is again very important for your exam. So in 1946 in Cabinet Mission Plan, that was done that we have to make a Constituent Assembly to make a draft constitution. The plan was accepted by both the Congress and the Muslim League initially, though differences soon emerged, particularly over the group of provinces. The Congress rejected the grouping plan, while the Muslim League saw this as an opportunity to demand a separate nation. The failure of the plan accelerated the push for partition and the eventual creation of India and Pakistan. Now we know that after the failure of Cabinet Mission Plan, there was declaration that India and Pakistan will be made. And in Independence Act of 1947, in a very brief tone, we will say that we had done the partition of India. So let's go through it. Indian Independence Act of 1947. The final step towards India's independence came with the passage of the India's Independence Act on July 18, 1947. The act effectively ended British rule and divided the Indian subcontinent into two independent dominions. One was India and one was Pakistan. What was the key provisions of Independence Act of 1947? The act transferred sovereignty to the two dominions and granted them full legislative powers. The British Crown had no further control or authority over India. The princely states were given the option to accede to the India or Pakistan or remain independent. So the princely states, we had some princely states who had independence, okay, at that time. So they were asked to move to India or Pakistan or remain free. Jammu and Kashmir was one such princely state. We have Jammu and Kashmir, Hyderabad. The act also partitioned Bengal and Punjab, and the large-scale violence that accompanied the partition saw the displacement of millions of people and the loss of thousands of lives. The Indian Independence Act marks the formal end of British colonial rule in India and the birth of two new sovereign states. Now we will be dealing with some important questions related to this topic. So we will see UPSC Prelims question 2019. Which of the following features were introduced by the Government of India Act 1935? Provincial autonomy, separate electorate, bicameral legislature, all of the above. I will be waiting for the answer. So the answer is all of the above. So So in 1935 we have taken such kind of provisions. All the three provisions we have taken. Now we will go for some mains question. So the Government of India Act 1935 is often considered the prototype of Indian Constitution, critically analyzed. So what you have to discuss here is the Government of India Act 1935 laid the foundation for the several features that were later incorporated in the Indian Constitution. It introduced federalism, bicameralism and provincial autonomy while ensuring continued British control over key areas. However, the Act was limited in its scope as it failed to grant complete sovereignty, which became a major point of criticism. The demand for full independence continued to grow, leading to the eventual framing of the Constitution of India by the Constituent Assembly post-independence. So that's all for now. Stay tuned with us.